Hey guys, it's Zero, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome to episode 1 of our new series, Road to Doomsday. This series is basically me rewatching and re-reviewing all the 37 MCU movies, plus any other relevant Marvel movies. So I want to go back and watch all the relevant X-Men movies, the Deadpool movies, and the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man series. I explain it a little better in the past previous video that I just posted, so if you want a little more information, it's there. But today, to hop right into it, we have episode 1 covering Iron Man 1. Before I start, I want to thank everyone for watching, but now we're just going to get right into it. To start, I'm so happy that I decided to start this series and give myself the actual excuse to, go back and rewatch the MCU and all these Marvel projects that we've had in the past. I talk about the MCU a lot, and it's such a big part of my life currently, but I don't ever really give myself the chance to go back and rewatch these movies that kind of made me who I am today. So I'm really looking forward to this series. But today, I watched Iron Man 1. To start, the poster for this movie is absolute gas. Even the alternate. Such a good poster. Starting off strong. And this movie itself starts off strong. You get Back in Black. Opening scene. Just a great intro to the character that we get of Tony Stark and Iron Man. But, movie starts out. He's a complete dick. He's a dickhead, man. He's quipping jokes with the people in the car, and then it just gets attacked. It's such a, stark, surprising intro to the movie, and it's just super abrupt. Such a good start. And, the cherry on top is that bomb being his own, kind of getting a taste of his own medicine. As we get further into the movie, we get good scenes like he gets called the Merchant of Death.
The Merchant of Death.
That's not bad.
And all that. So obviously, the movie does a little bit of a time jump. You get the explosion, him getting hit, and then it goes back a couple hours, I think like a day and a half earlier. He's being a dick at this conference. He's winning awards. He's not showing up. He's playing craps. One thing I do want to point out that we get, Terrence Howard is pretty cool as Rhodey. He'll return. Great scene later on into the movie.
Next time, baby.
But, weird situation there. I'm not going to touch too much on it. His whole math thing he's got going on right now is pretty interesting. But one thing I do want to point out is RDJ and Terrence Howard have pretty good chemistry. Like, actually really good chemistry as Tony Stark and Rhodey here. And it's just kind of a shame that it didn't work out. But I do also really like Don Cheadle in the role too. So, things ended up working out. There's some great lines. The Jericho scene is just crazy.
For your consideration, the Jericho.
A whole bunch of aura for Tony Stark there. He wants to be feared and respected. I remembered, I've noted that down. Such a cold little line. But the whole setup for the start of this movie is like a great intro, a great start to this movie. Like, I love how this movie is set up, showing his life at the beginning as that arrogant asshole, having fun and all that, and all kind of flips once we get into the cave after that explosion. And that's when you get to meet the character Yinsen. The bond that Tony has with Yinsen really kind of changes Tony in a good way. Like, Tony seeing all of his weapons with the Ten Rings group was really eye-opening for him. And a lot of the, back and forth with Yinsen when they're both prisoners in the cave, really kind of changes his outlook on things. You get great moments like the hammer banging in the cave, the shot, the first helmet shot.
My turn.
Pretty epic. The hammer obviously being the post-credit scene of Endgame. Just to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, I am going to know more about some movies than others. Like, Endgame has always been pretty fresh. Like, that's a very rewatchable movie for me, so I've seen it a bunch of times since release. It's very fresh in my mind. Same with movies like Infinity War and some of the more recent Marvel movies. I can remember them a bit better than a lot of these Phase 1 and Phase 2 movies. So I'm really kind of getting a good, recall here of those two phases and really enjoying it so far with Iron Man 1. But, after that, they tell him that he needs to build them Jericho rocket, and obviously he doesn't do that. That's when we get, the montage and multiple scenes of him making that first Iron Man suit. I really like the suit. Don't have many clips of it. I got some pictures here, but that whole sequence of him, the breakout sequence was really cool. Obviously the Jensen saving him with the magnetic pulling the shards, kind of keeping him locked in. Tony, obviously the arc reactor technology that he makes to help it out a little more. But I do have to say Jensen is kind of the GOAT here. He gets a nice little hero moment. He saves Tony's ass a few times. Tony saves his ass once or twice. They're bouncing off each other. Great combo there. And in the heat of the moment and when they're escaping, Jensen does die, saving time. But
don't waste it. Don't waste your life.
He explains really sad stuff with his family, and I thought it was a little out of character for Tony to kind of like accept it so fast just based on the person he is. I think that kind of says a lot about the bond they made in such little time. But Tony being still super arrogant at the time, like he accepted Jensen's death way too easily. I feel like in that moment he would try to just like pick him up and take him, but they had to give that good character death a moment to breathe, and I can respect the movie for that.
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps.
Tony really built that shit in a cave with a box of scraps. Ironmonger had it right there. Obi had it right. Some other things. This part of the video, I'm going to kind of point out some other aspects of the movie, because this is a very, just a very standard origin story. A very, pretty much set the path for so many Marvel movies to follow. Like, this is, the same as, Shang-Chi, Doctor Strange. A whole bunch of origin stories are very similar to this formula. And, Iron Man started off, and it's a great origin story. This might be the best origin story in the MCU, and it's the first movie. But here's some, little random things I noticed. When he returns, gets saved, wants a cheeseburger. Obviously, that kind of corresponds with other things we see. I'm gonna talk about a lot of the callbacks that we get later on into the video that we see further into the MCU. But there's a lot more than I didn't really pick up on, or not pick up on, but just kind of forgot about. But we'll get into that later. Tony's building the suit is awesome. The robots he has helping him are dumb and named Dummy, and it's all a bit of jokes, a bit of fun. But one thing I've noticed about this movie is it just looks so amazing. Everything about it. I'm going to jump around in the movie showing some clips here, but this movie just looks so great. I don't understand how the MCU looks so ass nowadays. When this movie, the very first movie, almost 20 years ago to this year, 18 years ago, it looks so great. There's only one part of this movie that I think looks a little wonky with the CGI and stuff. And it's just when Obi's out of the Ironmonger, like half in, half out of the Ironmonger suit, looks kind of wonky. But other than that, everything with the Iron Man suit looks great. Everything with anything military related looks great. All this movie just looks amazing. And nowadays we don't get that. Like I said that in my Letterboxd review. Links in the description for that. But I said they made this movie and it looks better than what we've gotten since Endgame, pretty much. Even before Endgame. It's insane. I have a note here that I checked the time at about an hour in, and it feels like I've been watching for so long in a good way. Like I was so invested, and there was still an hour left in the movie. It just kind of goes to show how great this movie is. It's so good. All of the building of the suit and, the function of the suit just looks so great in this movie. It's really sad to see how far the suit has come, like especially when you get into like Infinity War and Endgame with the nano suit. Really disappointing in those movies, but like these early movies, especially this first movie, it looks so great. The next thing I want to talk about here is the villain, Obadiah Stane, Obi. I really like everything leading up to the stuff with the Ironmonger suit. He's a pretty menacing individual just in his own right. And, I really like all the stuff. Like, he's very intimidating. You get he built the suit in a cave with a box of scraps, like we've seen. He's a very intimidating person. And I think everything before he gets into the suit is just phenomenal as a villain. One thing I don't like is that stupid ass like paralysis button. I really hate that thing. It just kind of frustrated me throughout the movie. But other than that, everything leading up to him having his own suit was really great. Now, when he gets the suit, I think he has a really cool like introductory scene with like him hiding in the basement, or maybe it's not the basement, maybe it's the ground floor, I don't know, but him hiding and Pepper finding him, and he has a cool like chase scene. But after that, the whole Iron Man versus Ironmonger fight, not the greatest thing. I think the fight scene earlier in the movie when Tony's protecting Golmyra is a much better scene. So like that end fight, not my favorite, but still very serviceable for a good movie here. Another thing about the final battle, you get the classic late 2000s or early to mid 2010s space beam for superhero movies. Probably one of the first to do it, but kind of started a pretty ugly trend. Another thing that I have noted, Agent Phil Coulson is a way bigger part of this movie than I remembered. Like when I think back on Phase 1, I think of Nick Fury and Agent Coulson as kind of like post-credit scene type characters showing up here or there to just kind of sprinkle seeds of the Avengers coming at the end of Phase 1. It really wasn't like that at all. Coulson is like a very big part of this movie. Like he is probably the 5th or 6th character that gets the most screen time in this movie. So something I didn't really remember that much about this movie, but felt like I needed to say it. The last thing I want to say about this movie before we get into the post credits, you get AC/DC Iron Man showing him after saying, "I am Iron Man."
I am Iron Man.
Great stuff there. But now we're going to get into the post-credit scene. And, it's great. Nick Fury's kicking it all off.
Here to talk to you about the
Avengers Initiative to start with the first movie is insane. Like them trying to introduce the Avengers in the very first movie. Like obviously they could have had plans for it, but to set this up where your first movie, which they didn't even know was going to be anything. Like Iron Man could have easily flopped. It didn't, thankfully. But it could have easily flopped, and it could have been the greatest, like, cash grabby, like, oh my gosh, we got to start something up, like, looked as as in a bad way, like we gotta start something, oh my gosh, kind of thing. Like Flash levels of him joining the Clooney Batman universe kind of thing. But it works. Like that's so ambitious. Like all the stuff with Coulson and Nick Fury, very ambitious for the first movie in your series, in your cinematic universe, and it just landed. Now I want to talk about some callbacks. And the first one I could think of, obviously, how could you not think of it, but the I am Iron Man at the end, going right into Endgame.
Iron Man.
I mean, just iconic. You get also the hammer, like I said, in the cave that becomes the post-credit scene for Endgame. The family tree for Tony, just so very close, like the apple falling not far from the tree at all. The first thing Tony wants after getting rescued, he needs cheeseburger. And, his daughter asking for a cheeseburger after his death. All great stuff. One thing, the one that I kind of forgot about is like kind of how important not important, but it was definitely a bigger part of Iron Man than I remembered, was his initial arc reactor in his chest getting framed. That's when you first kind of get it. Just something that kind of slipped my mind while watching Endgame. And, it's a big part of this. And then obviously it's very emotional at the funeral scene. You get that shot of it floating off into the pond. Just great stuff all around. Now I want to talk about some of the characters more individually here. RDJ is Iron Man. Great, like 10 out of 10 performance. He is Iron Man at this point. Like he fit the bill before, but no one will ever think of Iron Man as someone else before this. Like there was rumblings of Tom Cruise, playing it in the 90s and stuff, but looking back, no one will ever think of anyone else other than RDJ as Iron Man, and it's all due to this movie and subsequent ones, but this is really where it kicks off. I thought Gwyneth Paltrow was pretty good as Pepper Potts. I really liked, her and RDJ and their chemistry.
Will that be all?
Yes, that will be all, Miss Potts.
Worked pretty well in this first movie. Same thing with Terrence Howard, even though he, doesn't return. But I did think their chemistry was good in this movie. I thought Tony's and Obi's chemistry was great too. Just very good character moments between all these characters, and all the the lower stakes characters like Yinsen and Coulson were good in this movie. I just really, really enjoyed it. Now, if I had to kind of rank this, because I want to kind of give them, a stars rating out of 10 or out of 5. On my Letterboxd, I gave this a 9 out of 10 or 4.5 stars out of 5. It was so great on rewatch. I don't know if it's just nostalgia in my brain or what, but after I watched this, I was so happy, and I've really enjoyed it. It's a 9 out of 10 for me. MCU started so strong. And like I said, it was so ambitious to have all the things they added and for it pretty much all to pay off how it did. Just a great movie. Now, next week, we are getting into The Incredible Hulk. Actually, shouldn't say next week because I think it'll drop in a few days after this. Depends on how fast I can kind of edit these because, new to this whole thing. But next video, Incredible Hulk. Stay tuned. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing if you do. I hope you consider it at least. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.